This week on Pulling Power, the 4x4 fights back. We drive the new hybrid-powered Lexus that rewrites the rulebook. Plus, at the other end of the scale, we find out whether Ford's new pickup truck has got what it takes to conquer one of the world's most hostile wildernesses. And for all you skinflints out there, Britain's cheapest super mini. And find out how 100 quid can buy you a stack load of motoring goodies.
I've had to come all the way to Greece to drive the latest SUV. Somebody had to. Look at it. Unspoiled, beautiful ocean, unpolluted countryside in the background, and there I am just about to drive one of the most polluting cars on the planet. It's this, the Lexus RX400h SUV. It's probably a big off-roader with no doubt a big gas-guzzling engine under the bonnet. Or is it? Now, the first thing that strikes you about this Lexus is the way it starts up. I've got my foot on the brake, key in the ignition, turn it on. Nothing, absolutely nothing. It's like the car's dead and it's not going to go. But just to prove that it's running, I'll put the car in gear and watch this. Away we go. It's like being in a milk float. It's fantastic. At the moment, I'm just on battery power, but I'm going to get this thing out on the road, unleash the power of the engine and see exactly what it's like. Right, so away we go. Electric power only, very, very peculiar. What will happen, hopefully, is seamlessly the petrol engine, there it comes, cuts in, didn't even feel it, and we've got the full 3.3 litre V6 to pull us along, but it's also got two other engines. Look, in here, we've got the electric motor at the front, 165 brake horsepower. This is the big control unit, the brain that drives it all. 3.3 litre V6 petrol, 208 brake horsepower. Then the power flow flows down here to these three great big batteries that live under the seats, and they power the rear motor at the back. Coupled together is 269 brake horsepower, not bad at all. But if you put your foot down, harness the power of all three engines together, it's the equivalent of a 4 litre. So, put my foot down, all the engines are now working, I'm going up this hill. I've got the equivalent of a 4 litre car, and that's why it's called the 400. Everything about this car smacks of quality. It really is a luxury SUV. But to be honest with you, this car is very rarely going to see mountain roads like this. It's going to be buzzing around town, going into cities, dropping Trinity off outside the school gates, and for that, it really needs to be put into that town and city environment. So, let's give Rutherford a go.
Well, of course, Mr. Brewer had the pleasure of driving this car in sunny Greece, and I've got it in summer in Britain, and of course, summer in Britain means lots of rain, thunder, grey skies, very wet, people walking around with brollies. But hey, this thing can tackle mountains and all terrain that you throw at it, and it can certainly deal with the rather damp streets of the southern Midlands, I suppose we're in Abingdon. Are we? I don't know, you can correct me on my geography. But look, this is what it's all about. I'm moving along quite happily, very low speed admittedly, but no emissions according to the... Is he tooting me because I'm driving too slow? What's your problem, Gov? Now he's in one of those bloody great 4x4s that's spewing out lots of dirt and grime from his exhaust pipe. At this sort of speed, in this sort of location, I'm emission-free. How much bloody exhaust emissions you putting out, you big, red, dirty bus? Look at it. All that old junk coming out of the back of there. And how many people on it? None. Look, it's bloody empty. Did I say I can't see one person on it? Yes, I can. It's the driver. Even when I put my foot down and the petrol engine cuts in, it's still being assisted by the electric power pack. So emissions, fuel consumption, very, very low. And in terms of exhaust output, none at all at certain times. And when we stop, as we will for these traffic lights, well, the engine cuts out. Hear that? No, you didn't hear it, because there's nothing to hear. The engine's cut out, it's gone dead.
I've And what that all adds up to is a fantastic miles per gallon of 34.9 around town, which I think is stunning for a big SUV like this. It's also the lowest rated SUV in terms of its emissions, 192 grams. Nothing comes close. And so for all of you people out there who think a thing like this is out there polluting the world, you'll be wrong. And also for those people out there who think, well, it's still big and it shouldn't be clogging up our city streets, you'll be wrong again, because it's no bigger than a family estate car. And it's only that much wider than a Mini Cooper. Put that up your exhaust pipe and smoke it.
Mike and I have given it the thumbs up, but can we persuade the placard-waving environmentalists not to tar all 4x4s with the same brush?
What's it doing here? Move it.
Absolutely terrible.
I'm in a big 4x4, I don't have to worry, out of my way, peasants.
Well, frankly, it's criminal.
Oh dear. The full story a little later when Mike goes off-road at Leamington Peace Festival. There are only two ways to cross the Great Australian Outback. One is by plane and the other is in an off-roader.
This is Keep River National Park, near the town of Connemara, one of the least inhabited spots on the planet Earth. It's said to be the ultimate 4x4 playground, and I've come halfway around the world to Northern Australia to come and put what is essentially a pickup truck, or as the Australians call them, a ute, through its paces. And if you think that's a long way to come for what is essentially a pickup truck, then you'd be wrong.
Because Ford are claiming their new Ranger Wildtrak can take the rough stuff as well as any conventional off-roader.
Lesson 1.
Well, I've set myself a task of getting to the very heart of the Outback to find those places where no man or machine has gone before.
You see, cars like this are really the domain of the farmer. But Ford are hoping to get into that market that Mitsubishi have dominated for years with the L200 twin cab and their Warrior vehicle. That car is now driven by plumbers, builders, and they use it as a weekend vehicle as well as a work vehicle. And there's money to be had in that, and that's where Ford are going to put this one. And so far, I think they've done a cracking job. It's got chrome mirrors, it's got all the right noises on the outside, with ball bars and running bars down the side. It looks brutish, it looks rugged, it looks youthful.
And it looks as though you can stick half your local DIY store on the back.
Lesson 2.
Now, the ride of the Ford Ranger is what you'd expect of a pickup truck. It's got a crashy, bangy agricultural ride, and that's because I'm using it in the Outback. But there is something endearing about it. This is the kind of car that I cut my teeth on. I love to drive these. Rear-wheel drive, very lightsome over the rear axle. You can slide the back round with ease on the dirty stuff. And that's the sad part, because a vehicle like this in England is never going to see any bumpy stuff like this in the Outback. It's going to live on the tarmac where it's nice and smooth.
Which is a shame, because unless we have a very wet winter, it won't get to take on conditions like this. Still, it's nice to know it could if it was ever needed to. But at least now I've got to my first destination. And apologies for this, but I've suddenly got the urge to start talking like my old geography teacher.
This is Punalulu National Park, and these are called the Bungle Bungles. And just to give you an idea how vast Western Australia is, this place wasn't discovered until 1987 by a film crew. Sorry, Skippy? What was that? What? No, it's not a statue of Mike Rutherford. It's a termite mound made by billions of termites chewing stuff up, deposit it and then pooing it out, and they make these monolithic things, and they really itch and drive you mad. So made by termites, great.
And yes, I know this is supposed to be a car show, but I've been told this last bit had to be done on foot. Follow the track, they said.
And at the end of that trek, you arrive at this place. It's called Cathedral Gorge because it looks like a cathedral. It's a natural amphitheatre where people come to test their vocal skills. Whoa. I think Aled Jones is safer now, don't you?
Anyway, that's enough culture. Let's get back down to business.
When the car finally does come to the UK, it'll be priced around 18.5 grand. Then there's VAT on top of that, and that's the bonus of a car like this. Basically, it's a commercial purchase. Once you buy one of these, if you've got a business, you can claim that VAT back. And that's where the success of cars like the L200 twin cab, the one from Mitsubishi, have made their money, and that's where Ford will make their money out of this. This really is the most awesome place to come and test the Ford Ranger Wildtrak. If it can cope with what I've thrown at it, it'll have no trouble on the streets of England. Should the likes of Mitsubishi be worried? Yeah, I think so.
Coming up, we go bargain hunting. Britain's cheapest super mini. Car accessories for only £1 each. And buying a second-hand Mitsubishi Warrior. What to look out for?
Pulling Power is sponsored by CompuTeach.
Nice car, mate.
The stunning new Astra Sport Hatch. Go drive.
Would you like to come in for a coffee? Yes?
No.
Oh.
If you just can't face a bad coffee, pop into Wild Bean Cafe at BP Connect.
A lot of things have come and gone since the 70s, but Caniston has been providing effective relief from thrush for over 30 years. And today, Caniston Duo combines an oral capsule to treat the cause of the problem, and a double-strength cream that immediately soothes the irritation. Caniston Duo. Good then, great now.
Don't miss out. You can now get the new Astra Sport Hatch SXI for £99 deposit and £99 insurance.
She was fighting for her life on the edge of the South Pole.
I felt a lump in my breast, and I realized it was cancer.
With only one desperate solution.
Should I sit on this or perform an operation myself?
A remarkable true story. Survivors. Thursday at 10, ITV1.
Pulling Power is sponsored by CompuTeach.
As far as this vehicle's environmental credentials are concerned, for Mike and I, Lexus are now preaching to the converted. But how will the environmentalists react? Well, I sent Mike off to canvass their views on 4x4s at Royal Leamington Spa's Peace Festival.
So what do you think of these long, tall, four-wheel drive vehicles in general?
But they do pollute, don't they? And it's not good. Absolutely terrible.
Yeah, there's no snow drift and there's no ploughed field.
Yeah.
What's it doing here?
No, but
Move it.
Perhaps they need to be educated a bit better from an early age.
Not the most friendly of welcomes for 4x4s in general, but hang on, it gets worse. When I spoke to the man from Greenpeace, he was almost criminalising us.
For those vehicles to be polluting making the equivalent pollution of 4 cars during their life is, well, frankly, it's criminal.
After that kind of roasting, it seemed like a good time to come clean and reveal the car's true environmental credentials. Well, what would you say if I told you this is probably the most environmentally friendly 4x4 on the planet?
Really?
then it's all right, isn't it?
Well, hey, I say go for it.
Oh, wow, really? Oh, my God. Who makes it?
I think it's good technology, yeah.
Yeah, I'd look into it. I'd be up for it.
And the final word from Greenpeace man?
If they have to have a 4x4, then the one standing behind me is the one they're going to have to go and buy.
Yes, you did hear right. The bloke from Greenpeace has given a 4x4 the thumbs up. Now there's a turn up for the books. But wait, the environmental news gets even better. Just as a water wheel creates energy in a very sort of crude way, well, so do rolling wheels on a car. Look, the power from the wheels, the kinetic energy from the wheels, if you like, is going into the rear electric motor, and indeed at the other end of the car, the other set of wheels is putting the power into the front electric motor. That then goes into the battery, and we are therefore driving this car in these conditions, generating power. Can you believe it? Zero emissions, we're creating power.
Clever stuff. What that does mean is that you don't go home at night and trail out a big extension lead and plug this into your family's electricity bill. You don't need to. It's always charging itself up when it's on the road, or even if you're off the gas.
All this technology does come at a price though, between 35 and 45 grand depending on which model. But this isn't the first hybrid in the Toyota family. They also make a car called the Prius.
Now that's got clever hybrid technology, very similar to this, and it's become a star in its own right. That's because all the Hollywood stars want to turn up to premieres in one, because they love it. And what that means is now Lexus have got 12,000 orders for this in America alone. And believe it or not, for those of you who want to turn up to a premiere in the UK, you'll be at the back of 1,000 orders already in the UK for this car. So people out there are conscious of the environment. And let's face it, you've got no reason to be frightened of placard waving people outside school gates saying you're polluting the environment. Get them to get down on their knees, suck on the exhaust pipe of this, because nothing comes out when you're around town. It's just electric. Come on then, Wilt. Come on. It's running. It is running. I thought they were meant to die. Come on. It's doing nothing for me. I love it. Well, the Lexus RX400h handles beautifully on these Greek roads, and as far as I know, no animal or plant life killed over. Mike liked it around the city, and as far as I know, nothing killed over there. So if you are worried about your neighbours chucking buckets of red paint over you because you're killing the planet, worry no more. Just go and buy one of these.
You're looking at what I reckon to be Britain's best value city car. It's the Kia Picanto. You can have one for less than 6 grand, and you get an awful lot of pretty good car for not very much money. But of course, inevitably, with a car in this price category, it doesn't come with an awful lot of onboard gadgetry and gizmos. It could do with some TLC, even at this young early stage. It could do with a little bit of tarting up, and that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to spend the pricey sum of £100 adding bits to it, giving the car a bit of a treat. What can we get for our wunner? 3 or 4 little items, perhaps? Maybe more. You'd be surprised. Well, of course, there's nothing new in buying cheap bits for your car. We've all done it, especially in our younger days. Market stalls, cheap accessory stores in the high street. Think back to those early days when you got your first car. But you know, there's a new phenomenon on the high street these days. It's stores like this, the stores that specialise in selling parts for cars, accessories, whatever, tools, you name it, they do it for the pricey sum of £1 each. Can they really do this? We'll find out, shall we? Well, look at that. 3 of those, not 1 key holder, 3 for £1. I don't know how they do it. A 10-piece Allen key set. If you went and bought 1 of those, just 1 Allen key, that would cost you more than £1, surely. An emergency petrol cap come in handy. No, they've got to be used for legal purposes, siphoning petrol, but only if it's your own petrol, of course. Spray wax, traffic film cleanser, anti-fog spray. What does that mean? You drive along, you spray it out the window when it's foggy outside? I don't think so. I mean, look at it. It's all £1. What we also need, of course, is somewhere to store all this stuff, don't we? We need a nice toolbox. We're not going to get one, though, surely, are we? Hang on. Toolbox and fishing box. And if you haven't already guessed, it's £1. Here in the UK, we've got places like China to thank for these bargain basement prices. And although a lot of this stuff has already been available on your high street for a while, in real and actual terms, it's probably cheaper today than it was 30 years ago. That little lot is probably not more than 15 quid's worth in there, and we got an awful lot for our money. And this is just the start. We're going to move on. We're going to see what we can get in perhaps some more specialist shops, but we've got a budget of £1 for every item, except one. We'll reveal more later.
If after seeing our full Ranger in action earlier, you fancy dipping your toe into the ute market but can't stretch to a new motor,
well, what about this? Its main rival, the Mitsubishi L200 twin cab. This one is in the Warrior spec, which means it comes with more or less everything bolted to it. There are a couple of things that you should know about them though. First of which are these alloy wheels. They are subject to corroding, so make sure you check them properly. On the interior, remember this car could have been used as a builder's van or truck one time in its life, and it could have been subject to a lot of damage inside. Although the plastics are durable, they do scratch and mark up quite easy. In fact, this one's got a couple of marks on the seat already. At the rear, we've got 4 electric windows in this car, and they do have a problem with sticky rear windows. They go down, but for some reason they won't go back up, so make sure you check the operation carefully. Now, it's time to get my hands dirty, as I'll tell you that for some reason, when it's wet weather, this rear axle tends to knock. Also, under there are some greasing nipples, and they need attending to every 2,000 miles. Now, you can get it done at your Mitsubishi dealer, but it's expensive, and it's worth learning how to do it yourself and save yourself a few quid. Now, this one is in tip-top condition. It's a lovely car, a couple of years old, and I reckon it's worth about 13 grand. Now, for me, that's the bargain of the century.
Well, if 13 grand is a bit steep for you, let's continue our trip around Birmingham's bargain stores in search of cheap auto accessories. Everything here, and I mean everything, is a mere £1. Thank you. I'm not sure it was supposed to come that fast. Where do I begin? Everywhere you look, there's a potential bargain, so don't go grabbing everything off the shelf just like I'm doing. Give yourself a theme, like security, personal alarm, for the lady in your life perhaps, or car care, car cloths, auto wash and wax. No, they're not gardening gloves, they're the gloves you need in the car when you get a puncture and you need to change a wheel. Squeegee things for the window, a natural chamois leather. That's got nothing to do with cars, has it? But it is a thermos flask, and if you are travelling in winter, they do come in handy. In less than 1 hour, we've spent out, and everything cost £1. Well, not quite everything. Well, I think it's fair to say that we've done it, haven't we? I mean, can you believe we've only spent £100? I've got to admit, straight away, we didn't buy this for £1, like everything else here. That was about a tenner from a well-known family store. That's a black and white TV that plugs into the cigarette lighter socket, believe it or not. Not brilliant, but it'll do the job for an emergency football match or whatever. The rest of this stuff, every single item cost £1. Some of it is marginal, to say the least. Some of it's absolutely essential. Look, a camera, disposable camera with film inside it. You wouldn't go out and spend £7 or £8 on something like that and just leave it in the glove box and never use it probably. But you might do for that sort of money for £1, and you need to, because something like that is worth its weight in gold in the unlikely event of an accident when you need to get out and take a picture of the prang you've been involved with. And this, look, apart from the fact there's an alarm clock there to wake you up when you have that power nap on the motorway service area or whatever, but this here, the thermometer, you want this inside the cabin, the driver's cabin. Why? Because you should be driving around at about 22 degrees maximum in winter. Too hot, you get sleepy, you get lethargic, you can fall asleep. I think it's fair to say we've had a result, and so can you. Get your motoring accessories, get lots of them, and with the exception of the telly, don't spend more than £1.
For the latest motoring news, reviews and road tests, visit itv.com/motoring. Next tonight, Val Kilmer stars, Ron Howard directs, Sword and Sorcery in our movie Willow. That's next.
Pulling Power is sponsored by CompuTeach, the driving force behind IT skills training.